Today I'm speaking with Scott Lochridge, founder of Dragonfly Organization Resource Group. And Scott just published a book with a co-founder, Jennifer Rosenzweig. The book is called Enlightenment Incorporated, Creating Companies Our Kids Would Be Proud to Work For. And Scott, the main theme of the book is about how seismic shifts in the corporate culture is forcing organizations to adapt to survive. And I know over the last 25 years, you've held a variety of senior management positions across a number of companies, across a range of industries. What experiences, observations from those roles led you to write this book?
Okay, that's a great question. I come out of the strategy consulting world. I started off as a strategy consultant, so my job really was to kind of observe what's happening in the business environment and help companies stay competitive. And what you see over time is, and it happens all the time, changes in the business environment lead to kind of new rules in how companies compete. And it's happened, since one person sold, a product to another person. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing recently is we've already seen a fairly fundamental shift in a couple things. First of all, the technology revolution has really changed everything about the way big organizations can and should work. And what you typically see in history is when there's a technology revolution, it might be the steam engine, it might be the communication system or the highway system. The technology revolution then precipitates a change in the rules of business. And so the organizations usually then have to kind of adapt and figure the new rules out before they can really compete effectively. And we're really right in the middle of that. The internet and all those technologies, wireless, Wi-Fi, all that, really kicked in kind of late 90s and then in the last decade. And really organizations are now trying to catch up. But on top of that, you're seeing other major shifts. One being that the structure of our labor force has largely been baby boomers. They've really driven the agenda, but they're now retiring, even though with the recent financial crisis, some of that's going to be delayed. But as boomers retire, there will be a fairly significant shortage of prime age labor between the ages of 25 and 54, as the Gen Xers, who are next in line, and the millennials, who are behind them, kind of come up through the ranks. So you're going to basically see a shrinkage in the kind of effective labor pool. And in addition to that, you're seeing the boomers, as they age, they're changing. Their values are changing. They're thinking more about their contribution in life and balance in their life and their families. And then you have the Gen Xers behind them and the millennials, really with very different value systems than the boomers had. So you look at the generations coming up through the ranks, they've seen all the downsizing, the restructuring, and what the truth is, they've kind of lost faith in the business organization as someone that they can trust and rely on to take care of themselves. So they really think of themselves as really being on their own. They have to develop their own skills, they have to do their own savings. They really feel like they may work for an organization, but they're kind of an independent contractor. They really have to fend for themselves. In addition to that, you're seeing kind of this continued rise of what we're calling kind of social responsibility. A big push towards sustainability and social responsibility, really having a profound impact on business. So you kind of add all of these trends together, and you see a really fundamental shift in the business environment. So we took a look at this and said, the organization of the future is going to be very different than the organization of the past. And the problem we have is that most companies, our traditional companies, they really are utilizing the business model that was developed in the Industrial Revolution. So that really prompted the writing of the book.
In talking about the shift, it seems as though it's far in the future, because you say most organizations still operate as a traditional organization. How do you classify that?
First, I actually think the shift is here. I think what's happened in the environment is already here. You really are seeing the changes in technology. They're already taking full effect. You see organizations like IBM have completely restructured their workforces now. They work. The time marches on, so the workforce is changing. So I think the change is here. I think that most organizations are still utilizing what I call the traditional structure. And what I mean by that is, most big organizations, even most small organizations, were really built on a common model. And the model was really developed when we didn't have the luxury of instant communications with everybody all the time. And that was, again, decades and decades ago. And what we built our companies around were really the models that we had at the time, which were armies, right? So what we're now seeing is the new organizations that are emerging, and it's the Googles, have somewhat of a traditional structure, which they will have capability sets, but they're much more dynamic. They look much more like networks. And dynamic changing networks than a traditional hierarchy. So when you look at organizations that have a very rigid structure and hierarchy in terms of a marketing department or a sales department or operations department, the organizations that you're now seeing evolving are really more dynamic and look much more like networks with hubs and spokes that actually change. So one node may get stronger and one node may get smaller, but they may be organized around customers, they may be organized around channels. They may be organized around capability sets. They could be organized around products, but it's much more of a network structure. So the changes is occurring. What you're going to see is it's going to take traditional organizations who are kind of organized as a hierarchy, kind of the traditional org chart. It's going to take them time to evolve.
In reference to the social networks and companies, in the book you talk about connectedness and how when departments and companies are connected, it creates this positive energy flow, which positively affects business as a result.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
Yes. There's a lot of research out there on human behavior that really confirms what we all know, which is when we're happy, when we're engaged, when we're well, when we're excited and committed to something, we do a much better job. And this is something everybody knows, but sometimes that's kind of hard to create in an organization. So positive energy is an important thing. Sometimes it sounds a little flaky, but the truth is, if you can have a kind of healthy, happy, committed workforce, your productivity goes up, and productivity goes right to the bottom line. It says that you've got a bunch of people that are really doing more work than a bunch of people that wouldn't be committed and engaged and excited. So the positive energy part is important to a business, and having a positive culture is critical. The network and interconnectedness is important because, again, we're modern entities, but the truth is we're out of tribes. I mean, we've been part of tribes for centuries, and we are humans. We work well with humans. We interact well with humans, and the more connected we are to other humans, the more we feed off of their energy. And that's true with positive energy, and it's true with negative energy. So if you can surround yourself and be connected to others with positive energy, that has a building effect. The social network aspect of this, the network aspect is really how you interact and structure. But the social network is a really interesting paradigm for the new organization because it's already in place. People are already using social networks as a way to connect and stay connected with each other. So the new model of the organization will really have to embrace that capability because people are already doing it. You'd just like to be able to make sure that the social network is contributing to your culture rather than working against it.
So Scott, finally, what are some small things that employees can do to have a stake in their organization's success?
Okay, it's a great question because a lot of people work in organizations, right now that are struggling, right? And in tough times, people get afraid. They're afraid for their jobs, they're afraid for their companies, and it's usually a time when people stop taking risks, they stop reaching out, they start looking more internally. But the truth is that this recession will not last forever. We're going to come out of it. There's a lot that can be done now to start to think and prepare for the future. Because when the economy comes back, like it always does, there are going to be winners and losers. So people that start to think about this now, even in a small way, will be ahead of the curve. We talk really about several things that are really important to the business. Ensuring that you have a compelling vision. Ensuring that your leadership really exhibits the qualities of what good leaders do, teaching compassionate servants, that you really are thinking about how you engage your employees and address their specific needs, how you focus on how you are structured, like that you actually have a structure that is dynamic and can adapt to changes in the environment, that you're focused on the growth of your people, that you're really looking at what they need from their development and their career experience, that you're really focused on innovation and the value that you're creating in the world, and finally on your culture. So with those things, that can exist in a microcosm, it can exist in a department, or it can exist in a division, or it can exist in the company. And for people that are interested in this, you really can, like many other things, create a grassroots movement, even within the people that you like. These are things that we can work on and live by. And again, these are fairly straightforward. There's nothing magical about it. But I think each individual can really take the lead. You start with yourself, and then you work with the handful of people that you can influence, and then work on your department, then work on your business. So I think again, starting small, think locally and think globally, act locally. So I think that would work.
Well said. Well, thanks, Scott, and good luck with the book.
Well, thanks so much. This has been fun.